Hi there, I am Jon Mutchler. This is pianojon.com. Thank you for liking, sharing, and subscribing. I really appreciate it. I've been teaching piano for over 40 years. I've been a professional musician, and I think I've seen just about everything. So in this quick, brief video are the 16 most common and unnecessary mistakes that young piano students make. Beginning with number one, playing music too fast. I think you could add up all my other suggestions and it would just about equal just the comments I make to students almost daily to slow things down a little bit. There are reasons that students like to play fast. I think they think it sounds better. I think they're trying to impress. But at the end of the day, you do so much better if you just slow things down. Number two mistake, waiting until lesson day or the day before to practice your music. I can tell when that happens, and I know students are busy, but it's so important to get a little bit of time at least, even if just 10 minutes, ideally more like 30 minutes. I think 5 days a week, maybe 6 days a week. I'm kind of a big fan of taking one day off, sort of a Sabbath rest. It's nice to come home from your lesson, ideally just to review what the teacher has said. So, second mistake, waiting to the last day before your lesson to practice. Number three, incorrect hand position. I always get a chuckle when a student launches into a piece, their hands are in the wrong spot. They play the entire piece oblivious to the sounds that they are making. Finding the correct hand position is not that hard. It consists of three things. First of all, which hand is playing? There are only three options. Either the left hand, the left hand, or the right hand, or the middle hand. No, not the middle hand. Both hands, left or right, or both hands will start the piece. Those are the only three options. The second thing is to identify the starting note in each hand. Whether it's a C, G, or an F sharp, find the right octave, the right note. And then the third thing is identify the finger that is used to start the piece. The wonderful thing about new music for young people is that it makes it very easy to learn these things. For example, I brought in one of our Bastion books. You'll see a chart up in the upper left of the page. It has a picture of a keyboard, where the notes are and where the fingers go. And then further, fingering is very well marked out in modern music. You can also purchase what's called a note finder. I have been using this more lately for students. It's called a piano note finder. It fits on the keyboard. I've got this one. I've got a second one that's by Alfred. It's very similar. You'll notice there are notes, the staff up above where the notes are, and then the keyboard. They fit on the keyboard if you have a standard size keyboard. If not, you can just cut it down. These are terrific for new piano students. I don't think they should use them after the first 6 months or year, but to get started. So really important to find the correct hand position, the correct fingering. Number four, ignoring the key signature and the time signature. Once again, I laugh when a student launches into a piece that might have, say, 2 sharps. They don't play any sharps, so they're not aware that the piece sounds terrible. And just a quick comment about modern music for children. It's oftentimes very familiar. It's songs like Yankee Doodle, Ode to Joy, Mary Had a Little Lamb that kids recognize, so they can self-teach. They know if they've made a mistake. But if they're not playing the correct key signature, that has to do with the black notes, or the correct time signature. Just today I had a student. He was playing a 3/4 piece, basically a waltz in 3/4 time. He managed to play the entire piece in 4/4 time. What should have been 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. He added an extra beat to the third note and it became 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Checking out the key signature and checking out the time signature. Number five, not listening to yourself. You, student, are your best teacher. And when you're away from your teacher, you have to be your teacher. And all you gotta do is listen. It's baffling to me sometimes to have a student play a piece. It might be a well-known piece, again, like Ode to Joy, and they're not listening to themselves, and they're playing wrong notes, and they're quite frankly oblivious to that. All they got to do is listen. Perhaps they're multitasking. Perhaps they're thinking about their math assignment or something else, or dinner coming around the corner. But you need to listen to what you're doing, and you can correct so many mistakes and get so much better, so much faster just by using your ears to listen. Okay, common and unnecessary mistake number 6, forgetting to count. Forgetting to count. Whether it's a note or a rest, they need to be counted correctly. It might be a half note. It gets 2 full counts. Or it might be a 3-count rest. Well, 3 counts of rest must be counted out. We all have internal clocks, and if we're listening to a piano performer who's not counting correctly, our internal clocks will sense that something's wrong. So it's important for the pianist to count the correct note values for both the notes and for the rests. Number 7 mistake, inconsistent tempos and speeds. Playing a song maybe fast at the beginning, then you slow down, then you speed up, then you slow down, usually based on the difficulty of the song. And I would suggest this, the inability to play at a consistent speed oftentimes reveals the more difficult parts of the music that need our attention. Now, granted, as music gets more complex, there are variations in tempo according to the wishes of the composer. But these early songs for kids are meant to be at a very steady beat. So mom and dad, as you're listening to your student, you should be able to snap your fingers to a nice steady beat or be able to march to it usually. If not, if there seems to be a change in tempo, talk to your student, perhaps pull out the metronome and see what's going on there. Number 8 is related to this, repeatedly ignoring the difficult spots in music. What usually happens is you have a song and there might be maybe 2 or 3 measures that are just extra hard. What a typical student will do unnecessarily so is play the piece over and over and over again, thinking that somehow magically those difficult measures will resolve themselves. It simply doesn't work that way. When you play an incorrect measure over and over again, you're reinforcing, you're cementing that mistake in your psyche. It's a myth that playing something over and over again is going to make it better. You have to be more surgical. You need to identify the problem area and just, it usually only takes a minute or 2, carefully break it down, decide what you need to do to fix it, and then oftentimes it's the extra measure before or after that's part of the problem. Sometimes we think it's just this measure and we can learn that measure, but really the problem can be getting into the fingering and the notes getting into the difficult measure. So back up a measure and play the extra measure afterwards. Don't go back to the beginning. That oftentimes happens. A student will have a problem here, said, "Do you want me to go back to the beginning?" No, we don't have much time. We're not going to live that long. Just focus on the difficult parts that you're struggling with. And that leads to the 9th mistake, the 9th common mistake that students make. They forget to practice hands apart. That's probably the second most common comment that I make to students. Practice music hands apart. I like to use the illustration of a juggler. Imagine a juggler with 6 balls, and he's able to juggle 3 balls in one hand and the other 3 balls in the other hand at the same time, and they're not crossing, they're just independent. You know full well that before he could juggle those 6 balls, 3 in one and 3 in the other, that he had to learn to do one at a time. He had to start with that hand and maybe juggle 1 ball, then 2 balls, and 3 balls, and then do the same thing with this hand before he could do it all at once. Music is a lot like that. Many parts of music need to be practiced hands apart. It's so well worth the time. You might think, I want to learn this music fast. I promise you, you will learn the music faster when you devote yourself to hands alone practicing. Mistake number 10. Here we go again, playing the music too fast. The goal in playing music should be to play it relatively mistake-free. And it's funny to me, sometimes I'll have a student, I'll say to a student, okay, I want you to play again, I want you to slow it way down, quarter speed, half speed, 30% slower, something like that. And they start right up and they play it at exactly the same speed. I'll ask them again. They'll play it the same speed, the same fast speed. It's locked in. Oftentimes I have to stop and say, hey, this is not quite working out yet. Let's just stop for a moment. Let's each of us slow down, take a breath of air. Now, breathe out. Now let's play it again at a slower tempo. Take it really slow, okay? You've got to bring the student down to a slower tempo. It's hard for them. You can see their face just agonize. They want to race through the music. They want to play it fast. They think it sounds cooler that way, or they're going to impress somebody. But there's so much wealth and value in keeping things slow. Number 11, mistake that's very common and unnecessary. Ignoring the music. So oftentimes students get into their hands. They're just watching their hands, and they think their hands are going to move or the keyboard's going to jump away from them, and they don't look at the music. The music is the map. The music are the answers to the question, what note do I play next? And I encourage students not just to look at the music, but to look ahead a little bit. An analogy I like to use is bike riding. When you ride a bicycle, you're not looking at your feet. You're not looking down on the road that you're on. You're looking ahead to see what's coming up. Another reason to play slow, so you can look ahead a little bit and be prepared. Is there going to be a hand change? Is there a key change? Are you going to have to move in a different direction or a different tempo? All sorts of things are going on just down the road in the music. So it's important to keep their eyes on the music. Number 12, ignoring the given fingering in music. Ignoring the given fingering in music. Now, I sometimes change fingering. Not very often, but sometimes I think I have a better fingering. But for the most part, 99.9% of the time, the music that young students are going to use, the fingering is perfect. It's been carefully crafted and time-tested for young fingers. And it's designed such to make music easier now, but also make future music possible for them. So follow the written music, follow the fingering that's on the written music. One of the things that will do it will help make speed easier later on. So even if it seems like silly fingering now, like I could do a different fingering, you bet you could. Of course you could. But there is a reason for your fingering, and stick with it. And one of the great things about modern music for young people is they put a lot of fingering in, and just a quick review, thumb is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, both hands, is that when there's a hand change, they'll usually circle the finger number, and that's kind of a warning that you've got a hand change. We like to play songs where your hands don't have to move, but the more interesting music, your hands move around a little bit. So oftentimes that hand change is signified by a circle around the fingering. Common mistake and unnecessary mistake number 13. This happens all the time, and I still do it. Practicing only the fun, easy stuff and ignoring the important, difficult stuff in our lessons. You know, how often do parents walk by a room and all they hear over and over again is, over and over again. And it's a fun piece, it's an easy piece to play. Kids play it over and over again, and they're checked out, but because they're not learning the lesson and the things that are really important. I recommend maybe start with the fun piece, but then immediately start working on the meat of the lesson. A lot of times a student has completed a piece, it's done, and we've moved on, but they're still going to play that piece over and over again. So mom and dad, if you hear a song that's been played until it's going to die, check in with your student and make sure they're covering the rest of their lesson. Common mistake number 14, a poor practice place. A poor practice place. A poor environment for practicing. Maybe it's a place that's too cold or damp, or maybe it's too noisy or too much traffic is there. This also speaks to your student's instrument. Instrument must work, all the keys must work, it should be tuned. I highly recommend that you get your piano tuned, unless it's an electric keyboard, once a year. So having the right room is important. So the student is not being interrupted. This means there's a schedule, maybe there's cooperation with other family members. I have families that have families with 5 students in one family, and they've got to negotiate and make this work, and they do really well. It can be done, but you got to work as a team to provide obviously a safe but a healthy and comfortable environment for practicing. Number 15, common and unnecessary mistake number 15, not talking to your teacher, not communicating to your teacher your wishes and your desires. Tell your teacher if there's a song you don't like, if you're tired of a piece of music, or if you're getting too much music or not enough music. Your teacher is not a mind reader, and you can talk to them. If you don't think they're listening, tell them that. Say, hey, I need you to listen to me, Mr. Teacher. I really don't like this piece, and I'd rather not. And your teacher's going to change music unless there's a really good reason. He'll find something else for you to do. So learn to communicate to your teacher. And moms and dads, encourage your children to speak up. They might talk to you about a concern that they have. Help to empower them to talk to the teacher. One of the things I love having happen with my students is in their assignment book, a parent will write down something like that, like, hey, John, make sure Susan talks to you about the Beethoven piece and her struggles. They'll put notes in there. So don't be afraid to communicate me through the assignment book, or certainly have your kids speak up to your teacher. Last mistake, okay? The last unnecessary but common mistake, and here we go again, playing too fast. And this is a problem both of young students and people my age that like just to zip through a piece. It takes discipline and self-control to slow it down and to carefully work on a piece of music. And again, as I've said earlier, you will eventually get the piece at performance tempo faster. You'll get there sooner if you practice slower. So thank you for watching. This video was designed for students, for parents, and for teachers. Again, thank you for visiting www.pianojon, that's Jon, by the way, .com, and have a great day.